Welcome to another edition of Politics. I'm Egberto, Willies, your host. Today we have the honor once again to have Dr. Manuel Pastor. Dr. Manuel Pastor is a distinguished professor of sociology and American studies and ethnicity at the University of Southern California. He currently directs the Equity Research Institute at USC. Pastor holds an economics PhD from the University of Massachusetts Amherst and is the inaugural holder of the Turpingian Chair in Civil Society and Social Change at USC. Welcome to Politics Done Right, Professor.
Siempre un placer estar contigo. So
Muchísimas gracias por estar aquí también, hermano. Anyway, look, you. One of the reasons I contacted you is you wrote a piece in Common Dreams, and I imagine you have it syndicated many other places, but that's where I found it. And it was titled, Elon Musk Shows Us Why Individuals Can't Save the World. And I made that the topic of one of my shows at KPFT 90.1 FM Houston, because in that article, you nailed it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the article and why you thought at this time it was necessary to write?
Well, I mean, I guess one thing is that Elon Musk is trying to get all that money now from his board, but that wasn't the reason for the article. The reason is that I think that there's a story about Musk and others that's a very individualistic story about swashbuckling, adventuristic capitalists sort of marching through an Ayn Rand novel, inventing new industries, and, being able to essentially capture all the benefits from that and be deserving of that. But I think it's really important to realize that Elon Musk has actually benefited significantly from public largesse. His company, SpaceX, relies on federal contracts for those rockets. And Tesla, for its first 12 years, the only reason it was able to survive was because of air credits having to do with companies that couldn't meet lower emission standards, and instead paid Tesla to meet government requirements for them. And the reason why their electric vehicles are selling so well is because there's a public mandate for us to deal with climate. So I think the kind of thing I'm trying to inject into the conversation is to recognize how it is that the public actually helps to craft these markets. And it's individuals like Elon Musk who are not going to save us.
Professor, you said something that I think a lot of people don't understand. There was a false, people look at, rugged individualism and capitalism, and the best product survives and the market dictates what the products are, etc. And what you've just said, I don't think, you kind of just said it in passing that I think people need to understand. Because of government regulation, the companies that make cars that pollute the air could buy credits by having their money invested or passed on to Musk and his Tesla to offset the dirt that they're throwing out. Yeah. People don't get it. In other words, they created a manufactured demand for him to make a huge profit based on the law, correct?
Yes, that's the way that it played out. And I think there's this kind of sense, there's this story that what's going on is that when we look at an economy that's growing, that the reason it's growing is because of these private entrepreneurs. And I do not want to deny the fact that Musk has been brilliant at times. But it's important to realize he got kicked out of his first company, PayPal, for mismanagement, and wound up using those funds to get into other adventures. The other private company that he's really bought into, Twitter, he's pretty much run into the ground. So I don't know how brilliant that is compared to the two companies, SpaceX and Tesla, that were created as a result of public policy and public will. And you're right, the way that he made money initially for Tesla was that companies that were producing gas guzzlers said, well, we want to keep producing them, and we cannot meet the emissions standards that the federal government has for us. So instead, what we're going to do is pay for Musk to make electric vehicles, and he won't make a profit on them. But the reason that they're paying for it is because of federal policy. The bigger point is that the story we tell ourselves that the economy is the result of just individual initiative and companies, it's actually a result of public policy and private initiative. This was driven home to me the other day. I was in a meeting, uh, and it was about a bunch of companies that are interested in investing in the green economy space, electric vehicles, electric chargers, everything having to do with the green economy. And what they said, the company owners, was they were celebrating the Inflation Reduction Act, the bill that was put in place by Biden, which is giving us billions and millions of dollars in incentives to go green. They were saying it's really great that the government did that. Now the government should get out of it. And it's a stark contradiction between saying this government created the market, now we want them to get out of the way. No regulations, no wage standards, no community benefits, because we want to just jump into the market that they created. That's a contradiction. And what we need to do is to stop telling ourselves this story about the swashbuckling entrepreneur, to tell ourselves a more realistic story about how we need to combine public policy, public investments with private initiative and markets to yield an outcome that's beneficial for all of us.
I mean, I don't think I could have said it any better. And the thing about it, however, is that the people that are promoting the message, it's almost like a cabal of all the corporatists that promote that message. And it doesn't matter what type of, it seems like it doesn't matter what type of corporations you're formed, whether it's in the medical industry, the auto industry, the energy industry. They all would like to come to the belief that somehow they're omnipotent and they created the space, when the reality is, from the drug companies to the manufacturers of appendages, etc., they all, most of the times, the genesis of said innovation came from your tax dollar and my tax dollar. You say?
I have an iPhone. I have
That's
an
a
iPhone.
good, right.
When you think about the iPhone, what often gets celebrated is the genius of Steve Jobs and Apple. And let's give them some credit. Half of the patents in this iPhone actually come from chips and silicon and things that were created as a result of federal investments in research and development. All the profits go to Apple. What about some of the returns to those of us who made the investments to make this happen? So it's a very simple message about how do we strike a balance. The problem, Egberto, is that what's gone on is that we've been brainwashed in a very particular way to think that it's all private initiative and it's all the market. We wrote a book that came out a couple of years ago. One of the points of the book, which I think is really crucial in this conversation.
Give us the name of your book. Give us the name of your book, please.
The name of the book is Solidarity Economics, Why Mutuality and Movements Matter. And there is a website, solidarityeconomics.org, where you can download for free a copy of the book. That's solidarity with your readers. We also have on that website a comic book version in English and in Spanish. So you can give it to your kids, give it to people who don't read books, etc. But one of the central messages of the book is that we need to stop talking about the economy and always talk about our economy. When we talk about the economy, it makes it sound like a set of rules out there given by God, nature, or the market.
Oh,
And we
yes.
simply cannot change them. But it's our economy. We made these rules about what kind of private property we're going to protect, how much we're going to value the environment, what the wage standards are going to be, how many community benefits we expect. When we say our economy, we see all of us in it as creators and as benefactors and as beneficiaries of this economy.
It's amazing. You mentioned your book. I have a couple of them that I did. As I see it, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom, and the How to Make America Utopia, take away the economy from those who rigged it. And one of the essential things is similar to what you're saying, and that is we have a tendency to believe that the economy is divine. The economy has never been divine. It has always been man created, and this time I'm even including gender. It's a man created economy that actually afforded rights to some, and that some is just a very few, and the rest, for all practical purposes, no matter how much you want to think you have, some level of what I always call antiseptic slavery. I mean, as a professor, you'll tell me, Egberto, don't say that, but I call employment in the current state antiseptic slavery. But my friend, I don't think there are many people out there that are expressing the wordiology that you're putting out there. There are several other professors I try to work with that are clean cut in the way that they express this, and I can't express to you how important that is, especially in these times. But what we have to have, in my humble opinion, is your word, your books, your manuscripts, your speeches has to be platformed in such a manner that it really gets out there as wide as possible. So your thoughts on that, and what recommendations do you have of how the hell do we really get all of this done?
Well, I think if you really want to change, and I'm sure this is the topic of your books, if you particularly given those titles, if you really want to change our current economic arrangements, it's clear that we need power. We need laborers to have more power, workers and unions. We need communities to have more power. We need our planet to be respected and have more power in the conversation. So we strike a better balance. Now, one of the things I think is part of power is, of course, the power of arm wrestling, power of politics. So I think that one of the things that the power of language is important about is, again, when we say our economy instead of the economy, it's a big shift. When we make the point that addressing inequity is actually good for prosperity, it's not just a question of justice, fairness, or being a liberal do-gooder, but you know that the level of over incarceration we've got in the United States is tossing away talent. You know that a broken immigration system, or one that does not let people who want to work in at our borders to fill the jobs in a booming economy, it's actually going to cost us output. You know that underinvestment in the schools where our Black and brown youngsters go, particularly low income kids, if we don't invest in those schools, we're shortchanging our productivity for the future. So, one of the things that we who are progressives need to be doing is to really think about language and to think about how it is we can make the argument that equity is actually good for prosperity for most of us. And how do we shift the language? For example, there's a big debate about artificial intelligence. And what I like to say is there's nothing artificial or intelligent about it. Really, what artificial intelligence is theft. It's large language models scraping the internet, taking all the knowledge of the commons, and then trying to privatize that to sell it back to you without a return to you for whatever you contributed to that commons. By the way, this is a lot like the moment of the foundation of capitalism in England when the commons, the lands where everybody would graze their sheep, was actually taken over by landlords and turned into their own private land to be able to graze large herds and take that wool from the sheep and feed it into factories building clothing. And that was kind of the beginning of capitalism. We're seeing the emergence of another kind of new capitalism now by enclosing the commons of human knowledge and trying to privatize it for private gain. So we need to have a different language.
Oh my God, that was like manna from heaven, brother. That was like manna from heaven. I am going to close it there. Dr. Manuel Pastor. I think that last statement on AI is the statement that needs to go around the world. Thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
Un placer. Como siempre.
Muchas gracias, hermano.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.